All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started now, everyone. My name is Jessie Stahl, and I'm the Senior Policy and Program Coordinator at PlantPure Communities, and I'm joining in from Wilmington, North Carolina. I am delighted to welcome you all to this webinar on the truth about nutrition and COVID-19 with Dr. Michael Klaper and Nelson Campbell. I have a few housekeeping items that I would like to quickly go over with you. For those of you who are joining us in the Zoom room, you will have the best viewing experience if you click the full screen mode, which is on the top right corner of your Zoom screen. We are also live streaming the webinar on the PlantPure Communities Facebook page, and it is being shared on Dr. Klaper's Facebook page as well. We encourage you to share the live stream video with your family and friends by clicking the share arrow in the bottom right-hand corner of the live video. You will have some time later on in the webinar to ask your questions directly in the Zoom chat and in the Facebook comments, and the PlantPure Community staff will be monitoring these throughout the webinar. If we don't get to your questions, please email globaljumpstart@plantpurecommunities.org. And also just a reminder to please refrain from submitting detailed questions about your personal health. These types of questions can be difficult to answer without knowing your medical history. And lastly, a recording of the webinar will be posted on the PPC YouTube channel, and everyone will receive a link to the recording. And now, before I hand it over to Nelson, I will ask the PlantPure Community staff to briefly introduce themselves.
Thank you, Jessie. Hi, everyone. I am Ella Stevens. I am the Pod Support Programs Manager at PlantPure Communities, and I am joining from Boston, Massachusetts.
Hi, everyone. I'm Caroline. I'm the Vice President for PlantPure Communities, and I am joining from Durham, North Carolina.
Hey everyone, I'm Josh Wayne. I'm a Regional Manager with PlantPure Communities, and I'm joining from Atlanta, Georgia.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jody Cass. I'm the Executive Director of PlantPure Communities. Welcome. Welcome to everybody from far and near. We really happy to have you here. I'm joining you from New York. I wanted to just, before we hand this over to Nelson and Dr. Klaper, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background here. We had created the idea of doing this webinar with Dr. Klaper several months ago, and then the pandemic hit, and soon after that, Dr. Colin Campbell issued a very, very important commentary, which will be part of the subject that will be covered today. And what emerged from that was a decision by PlantPure Communities to create a global jumpstart, 10-day global jumpstart, which we kicked off last weekend. And so what we have today is we have a mixed audience. And so some of you folks who are joining us are in fact jumpstarters, folks who have signed up for the global jumpstart, and we welcome you. So happy to have you here. And then there's just folks who just big fans of Dr. Klaper and PlantPure Communities who have not yet joined the global jumpstart, or they might have missed the deadline. We do have a second one coming up, and so folks who are interested in that can certainly, you'll hear about that later today. So with that, a great big welcome to everybody, and especially to our wonderful guest, Dr. Klaper. I'll hand this over to Nelson now.
Thank you, Jody. I am really excited about this session here today. And before we get started, I'd like to introduce Dr. Klaper. I think just about everyone on this call here knows Dr. Klaper. Dr. Klaper is a member of our board of advisors. He was trained in internal medicine, surgery, anesthesiology, and orthopedics, practiced acute care medicine in Hawaii, Canada, California, Florida, and New Zealand. But most of all, as we all know him, he's an important leader in the plant-based nutrition movement. He's authored numerous articles on plant-based nutrition, and I believe he's authoring a new book on plant-based nutrition and its ability to arrest and reverse disease. And Dr. Klaper adopted a plant-based diet all the way back in 1981. So he's been plant-based for quite a long time. He has a website at drklaper.com, and you spell out drklaper.com. And there you can get videos and DVDs, and you can also subscribe to his free newsletter, Medicine Capsule. But most of all, Michael's my good friend, and I'm really excited to have this discussion with you today, Michael, on this very, very important issue. Before I say anything, would you like to say a few words?
Well, I want to thank you for the opportunity to join you in this esteemed audience, and commend you on all the good work you're doing to get the message out about the power and the beauty of a plant-based diet for so many reasons, which I'm sure we'll be delving into. But I'm quite excited to be with you, and everyone who's listening today. Should be a good program.
Yes, and you're doing some amazing work too, and we're going to get to that a little bit later in the presentation to let folks know what you've been up to. As Jody mentioned, my father wrote an article, which you've of course read very closely, Michael, talking about the connection of nutrition to immunity, specifically in relation to COVID-19. And he is very close to finishing a second article as well, which we will probably publish in a few days. So the focus of our discussion today will be really focused on some of the ideas that he expressed in his commentary. And I'd like to get your perspective as a seasoned physician on some of these ideas. And I should mention that I had a grand total of 3 hours sleep last night. So I hope I can keep up with you in this discussion, Michael, and I'll do my best. And maybe my first question is whether or not you have any advice for insomnia.
Yes, get some sleep. But seriously, it depends what's keeping people up. If there's physical pain or distress, that has to be dealt with. If your head's just full of I lost my job and how am I going to pay the rent next month? That's a whole other reason to lose sleep over. And I wish I could wave a magic wand there, but the best thing we can do here is end this pandemic and let people get back to work.
Well, we'll just leave it that I was so excited about this conversation I couldn't sleep. So
oh, well, that's a good reason, I guess.
Maybe I'll sleep tonight. Okay. So the idea for my father's commentary came from an article that we read back, I don't know, maybe 3 weeks ago. It was an article of a study by the National Health Authority in Italy looking at the folks who sadly succumbed to COVID-19 and the characteristics of those folks. Who are the people who have suffered the most from this disease?
Well, as seems to be all over the news these days, folks who are older, and I guess I'm in that category as I blew past 72 a while back. But I consider myself a healthy 72-year-old. The folks who aren't so healthy, the folks with the fabled pre-existing conditions. And these are people who already have disease processes in their heart, their congestive heart failure, that backs blood up into their lungs, and that makes it an easier target for the virus. People with diabetes that's poorly controlled, their tissues are all saturated with sugars, and their immune cells can't function very well in that situation. People who are struggling with obesity, abdominal body fat puts out lots of inflammatory molecules called inflammatory cytokines, and that interferes with good immune function. People who've damaged their lungs from smoking are certainly more inviting targets for a respiratory virus. And people with pre-existing lung disease, asthma, et cetera, they don't do so well if they get this condition as well. So it's the people with the heart disease, lung disease, and diabetes who fare especially poorly when they get this aggressive virus.
And what would you say is the biggest contributor to those chronic conditions?
Well, as you and I both know well, it's dawning on my colleagues slowly, and I'm trying to hasten that dawning as much as I can. It's what our patients are eating, what we're all eating day after day. Whatever you eat in your last meal floods through your tissues within hours, and if it's full of the standard Western diet fare, meats and dairies and oils and flour products and sugars, et cetera, then that causes problems from obesity to inflammation to artery disease. It's our Western diet, of course, that sets the stage, actually is the primary cause for the obesity and the diabetes and the artery disease and the heart failure. And dairy products seem to play a role in asthma and lung disease. So again, it's the food, it's the food, it's the food. I think I'm going to have a T-shirt made up with that, but that's ultimately what it comes down to. And the beauty, of course, is changing to a diet based on whole plant foods, the salads and the soups and the steamed veggies and the lovely casseroles, etc. Meal after meal, that floods an entirely different set of nutrients through your tissues, filled with these phytonutrients that suppress inflammation, that promote tissue repair. It's a more healing fuel mixture to send through our cells hour after hour, and it makes all the difference in the world when it comes to arresting and reversing these diseases. And we can assume, we assume that this would be a value when it comes to the COVID virus situation that I'm sure we'll be talking about. So good food makes all the difference.
Yeah, and my next question you sort of already answered, but I'll ask it anyways because a lot of people out there don't understand the breadth of impact. Would you say that diet affects essentially all of these chronic diseases across the board? And this is an important idea that we're going to circle back to later here.
Oh, it's stunning. And we're just starting to realize the magnitude of the change. The difference between running an animal-based diet through your tissues or a plant-based diet, it's the difference in computer language, I guess, between 1 and 0. Either these contaminants that come from cooking meats, the carcinogens that cause cancer, and the mutagens that damage your genes, and the new 5-GC that sets off inflammation. All these substances inherent in animal flesh is a constant stimulus that promotes disease and inhibits healing. The very act of changing to a plant-based diet, poof, all those damaging molecules disappear. And they're replaced by these lovely healing phytonutrients and more water. This is a high water content diet, and that changes the blood viscosity. All these salads and soups and steamed veggies, they're full of water. And so the blood is less viscous. It flows more easily. It delivers more oxygen to the tissues. Everything changes. It's like you've been running your car on diesel fuel, and then you switch to gasoline. Woo, runs much better. And that's what we're seeing with the change to plant-based diets. We can't underestimate this. The closer we look, the more we're dumbfounded at the beneficial changes on every level, genetic and molecular and physiologic. It's a dramatic and exciting frontier of healing. Wow,
that was a great answer. So the food that we eat has a wide breadth of effect. And of course, that's something that my father found in his China study. Most people know of my dad's work looking at the connection of diet to chronic diseases. But actually, he also has collected some interesting information in that China study on the connection of diet to immunity. And he talks about this in the article that he wrote, which, by the way, you can see this article at plantpurecommunities.org if you haven't already read it. But he went back and looked at his China data and found convincing evidence that a plant-based diet increases immunity to the hepatitis B virus, which can cause liver cancer. And when he went back and he looked, he saw that populations consuming more plants in China had more antibodies to that virus and less antigen, which is the active form of the virus. So it was a very strong relationship there, a correlation. And of course, some people who hear that, who maybe are steeped in a more reductionist view of biology might say, yeah, that's interesting, but that's the hepatitis B virus. How can you say that a plant-based diet might also apply to immunity against other viruses? What would you say how would you answer that question?
Well, your father's research shown the light on some very profound effects that food can have. And I'm struggling to get my colleagues in medicine to believe that what our patients are eating has anything to do with these diseases. We go through medical school now, totally disregarding the role of our patient's diet in these as a cause or a curative factor in any of these diseases. But your father saw past that and noted that when folks who are exposed to the hepatitis virus that promotes liver cancer, if they're consuming a lot of animal-based protein, especially casein and cow's milk, the process really gets accelerated. There's something in the animal protein that the viruses really seem to like. And when you switch to plant-based protein, whoa, it pulls out that accelerant and is the cancer growths really decrease markedly. And there's turning out to be, it's almost like fractals in mathematics. The closer you look, the more it breaks up into smaller and smaller pieces. And it kind of goes against what your dad's trying to get us to understand. It's the whole food stream. It's the properties of the entire food stream going through our tissues that really makes the difference. But if we do get down into the reductionist world there and look, we see that there are some common pathways on the surface of viruses, certain enzymes that are used to help the virus invade the cells. And changing to a plant-based diet interferes with the virus's ability to both invade or to replicate on so many levels. Plant-based diets help lymphocytes put out more effective antibodies. It helps strengthen the integrity of the tissues that provide the initial barriers, our mucous membranes, take vitamin C and vitamin D to be healthy. The element zinc plays a major role in helping our immune systems function. And again, a healthy whole food plant-based diet. We're not talking about granola bars and energy drinks here. We're talking about colorful salads and steamed vegetables and lots of beans and mushrooms and berries, etc. These flood the tissues with all these phytonutrients that really seem to aid the body's antiviral defenses. Of course, we're all in unexplored territory here. This is all nice to speculate about, but we're in the middle of a viral pandemic here, and it makes sense. If you're in a lifeboat, boy, patch all the holes and keep paddling. And that's where we are as far as our nutrition and our personal defenses go. So you want to do everything you can do to optimize your personal nutrition. We can talk about specific foods that might help. But there's no question that the body is much better able to fight off virus infections on a lot of different levels when it's fully nourished with all the, especially the micronutrients, the vitamins and minerals required for cellular defense. So the common mechanisms between COVID virus and hepatitis virus makes them both makes us better able to defend against both on a healthy, health promoting diet.
Yes, that's I think it's very true. I think a lot of times when we look at health and we look at biology, you use the word reductionist, I think I did too. We tend to see biology in a very reductionist way. We just peer at pieces of the whole. A lot of research studies, as you can say better than me, are oftentimes focused on one factor and how that factor relates to a particular disease process. And we look at these diseases as endpoints unto themselves, and we forget that each disease is essentially a breakdown of the same biological system. My father has often said in the past that most disease really, it all stems from the same root, which is poor nutrition. And how that degenerative process expresses itself is a result of our genetic predisposition. So, you know, someone may eat a bad diet, a poor diet, and they end up with type 2 diabetes, another person heart disease, another person cancer. But it really stems, it all comes from the same place. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. As I say, your genetics loads the gun, but your diet and your lifestyle pulls the trigger. You know, you may have a genetic propensity towards a specific disease, but whether that disease actually manifests in your given body depends on the food you're running through your tissues 3 times a day. That's by far the greatest determinant of whether disease actually shows up in a person's body.
Mm-hmm. And when we see health holistically, so we'll kind of circle back to the earlier point about the breadth of effect. When we see health holistically as the state of a system, it sort of makes intuitive sense that when we meet the natural requirements of that system and we optimize its health, that we'll optimize the health of that system in every respect, not just with respect to cancer or immunity to a particular viral infection, but in every respect.
Absolutely. We are holistic creatures. Everything is in touch with everything at this point. What you eat, what you think, how much sleep you get affects everything in our body. So it's foolish, you know, like to think it doesn't work that way. I'm going to have another T-shirt made up saying, you know, your body is never not looking. You know, there's no fooling your body. It knows what you eat. Your immune system knows very well about that cheeseburger or candy bar. And this is not the time to be suppressing your own immune system when you've got these viruses stalking around here. So absolutely, everything that we do, especially what we eat, influences everything. Of course, we need to respect that.
Yeah. Now you said something in a answer or two ago about foods that might be particularly helpful in boosting our immune systems. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yes, there's a number of them that really should show up on everybody's plate on most days to do the best you can. Among my favorite immune boosting foods are certainly mushrooms are high up on the list there. They have beta glucans that are extremely beneficial. They stimulate the lymphocytes to put out better antibodies, to get their anti-cancer mojo on, if you will, unscientific term there, but it really does help cellular immunity. So mushrooms show up in most every soup and salad and casserole that we have. Dark colored vegetables, especially dark green vegetables, have folate, which is essential for immune health. They have calcium, which is important for antibody production. And those brightly colored berries, the raspberries, the strawberries, the blackberries, they are filled with phytonutrients that really stimulate a lot of good things in the immune system, the dendritic cells that first receive the cellular messages that there's a virus out there. The berries seem to really improve the immune cell's ability to react to that. Good old beans and legumes, lentils, etc. Why do they help? Because they foster a healthy microbiome down in our gut. The resistant starches and the fibers that are in these legumes foster microbes that in turn keep us healthy. Yeah, and that's people devote their whole careers now to learning how the microbiome organisms strengthen our immune system. But that's another factor. And again, we're talking about what's really in those colorful salads and soups and casseroles. And desserts we have berries with a little bit of almond milk on them every night. And that kind of delicious food are exactly the foods that'll help keep your immune system up to snuff and really strong. So those are my favorites.
You know, Michael, when you talk about all those foods, you did this on the last program that you and I were a part of. I kind of get hungry when I listen to you.
It's 1:30 here. I missed lunch here. I'm looking forward to it after the interview.
Yeah, great. All right, so this is a powerful idea, particularly based on where we are today, as you said earlier, Michael, talking about the urgency of this crisis. And as you know well, having been plant-based yourself since 1981, this is a message that's been suppressed for decades. And, you know, I oftentimes remember, and I've talked about it, I remember the night that my dad came home from work and we were sitting around the dinner table and he was so excited. He said that he figured out how to turn cancer on and off by alternating between plant and animal protein. And I just thought that at that time, that was decades ago, that was the most amazing thing I'd ever heard of, practically. And, you know, I thought that somehow this message would have gotten out a lot sooner. And I never dreamed that in the year 2020, most of the world's population would still be eating the wrong food. And of course, this is why we have so many people today vulnerable to viral infections like COVID-19. And it's especially disconcerting to me now in the midst of this crisis that people in our government and media are not sharing this information. And as I've said in a couple of webinars previously, many of them do know this information. In fact, there are major medical experts and kind of talking heads in the media who've read the China study, who know my father. I'm sure they probably know of you too as well, Michael, and all the great work that you've done. But they don't talk about this, and all the news. I've never even heard the word nutrition so far uttered once. I don't see all the news, but I never see discussion about nutrition. So if you were sitting in front of one or a group of them, what would you say? I'm just curious what you were in a room with these folks who may possess this knowledge, but who aren't sharing it with the public during a time like this.
Oh, this is so huge. And given how polarized we all are these days, it would have to be introduced very diplomatically. But the truth is the truth. And the chickens have come home to roost. Oh my, how faithful that's turned out to be. In that we've been treating food or eating as a recreational activity in this country for decades now. And we just shovel in those hyper palatable fat, salt, and sugary treats. And as a result, we wound up obese and clogged up and inflamed. And sitting ducks, if you will, all these animal analogies here, for this virus now. And we can play victim, but really we've kind of put out the welcome mat. And this is an opportune time to at least put that idea in our leaders' heads. This is not just a matter of looking good on the beach in your bikini. We're talking about keeping people healthy on a cellular level so they're far less vulnerable to this virus. And then we get into the whole issue of, the food is such a personal subject, and it's associated with comfort foods and what we've been told that we need to eat. And there's obviously a huge economic juggernaut grinding along, keeping us eating these unhealthy foods. And those interests complain loudly when you talk about changing the balance in the diet there. So this has to be done, diplomatically, but again, they say you can't keep a hat pin in a cloth bag for very long. The point comes out, and the point's coming out here. And I would offer a very hopeful note that you want to create a lean, healthy body that's more resistant to these infections, then encourage people to adopt a more whole food, plant-based diet. And that would be a place to start. We can get into the whys and hows as it goes on, but I would at least point out that there's a huge nutritional component to what we're seeing here, and that plant-based diets offer a way to a much healthier future for us all.
And you just sum all that up by telling them to tell the truth, right?
Tell the truth. That would be a nice thing to start with.
Yeah.
It's, really, yes.
Yeah. No, it's so much value in just telling the truth.
Absolutely.
And this leads to the last set of questions here before we open this up to a Q&A. You're very much a truth teller, and you have a major initiative now that you have launched, and it's actually an initiative that you've launched in collaboration with our nonprofit PlantPure Communities. PlantPure Communities is acting as a fiscal sponsor. but the initiative that you've launched is Moving Medicine Forward. Could you explain what that is and what you've been up to these days?
Certainly, thank you for that invitation. And I'll apologize to all the listeners for the background noise. My wife fosters kittens for the Humane Society. We've got 4 little kittens here that she's fostering. She just fed them. We were hoping they would go to sleep, but they're up and around. You hear them mewing. It's just the kittens there. She went out shopping. We hope they would go to sleep. Anyway, as far as moving medicine forward, I got to the point in my medical career after 40 years of teaching and treating patients one at a time that there's a massive mission here that nobody's dealing with. Somebody's got to get to the young doctors and tell them, wait a minute, before you order another set of lab tests or renew someone's statin prescription or metformin prescription, realize the reason they're sitting in front of you, obese and diabetic and hypertensive and clogged up and inflamed, is from what they're eating. It's the Western diet that they're running through their tissues every 4 hours. That's why they're sitting in front of you, doctor. And if you get them on a healthy plant-based diet, these diseases go away. Young docs need to know this. These are reversible diseases, but you have to understand what you're looking at and what the real treatment is. And I welcome the plant-based dietitians who will do the diet counseling for them, because the doctors say, well, I don't know anything about it. You don't have to, doctor. Just know that there's a dietary disease plaguing this person's body sitting in front of you. And the plant-based dietitian will get them on a healthy diet. You just see them back in a month. They'll be better. And so we've been going to the medical schools, and I've been talking to the young students about this very thing, that plant-based medicine is the wave of the future, and I've got a slide that says, you want to heal these patients or don't you? Now, I mean, really, why are you going into medicine? You want to get them healthy? Then be honest with them about why they really have these conditions. And the students have been very receptive to this, and we want to get this out in the widest audience possible. There are organizations that are helping us get the message out. PlantPure Communities has been just a powerhouse of an ally in helping me go to the medical schools. I'm very appreciative to that. But we can talk about, or we'll put it on the webpage when we're through here. There are resources you can give to your family doctor. There's places you can go to educate yourself. But we need to generate a new generation of nutritionally aware physicians, and that's what Moving Medicine Forward is aimed to be doing. And if anyone would like to learn more about what we're doing or support us, go to my website, drklaper.com, DOCTORKLAPER.com. I'm sure you'll have the link there, and click on Moving Medicine Forward, and you'll see what we're doing and how you can help.
Michael, if I was a young medical student training to become a physician, what would you say to me to really compel me to think this way, to really open my eyes to this idea? Why is it more joyful to practice medicine this way versus the old way?
Well, you really kind of put your finger on it in that medicine, there's so many doctors, older ones, younger ones, getting so disillusioned and burnt out because nobody's getting healthier. They're just managing chronic disease. And that's a dismal way to run your medical practice. Everybody just gets more obese and ill and inflamed till they get their stroke or their heart attack. That's just a dismal way to run your medical practice. The joy in helping people move to plant-based diets is you watch them get healthy right before your eyes. The body knows what to do with this food when we stop interfering with it and give it the nutrients it needs. Within days of adopting the whole food plant-based diet, the obesity starts to melt away and the arteries relax and open up. And so the high blood pressure comes down and the joints stop hurting and the psoriatic skin clears up and the migraine headaches get better and the asthmatic lungs wheeze less. They turn into normal, healthy people right in front of your eyes. And I tell the students, what greater gift could you want as a physician than to see your patients turn into healthy beings, get off the pills and cancel their surgeries? Isn't that the joy of medicine? And I tell them I'm the happiest doctor I know. My patients get healthy, yeah, right in front of our eyes. So I tell them, if you want to be the happiest doctor you know, then school yourself on the power of plant-based nutrition. And no matter what specialty you're in, all these conditions will get better with the proper food stream going through your patients' bodies. So I invite them to get on the plant-based train, and many of them are.
Wow, that was powerful, powerful answer. I've just gotten a sliver of what you see all the time when we do these jump starts, and you see people whose lives are changed, and it's just such a good feeling. You feel it's a compassionate act, and anytime we express compassion like that, we get back a whole lot more in return. So it's very joyful and almost spiritually fulfilling in a way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think that's excellent. Well, let's go ahead and open this up to some questions and answers. Are we set up to do that now?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you, Nelson and Dr. Klaper, for that engaging discussion. So our first question here is for Dr. Klaper and Nelson as well. Numa and many others have asked, how do we increase public knowledge of good nutrition?
Well, Nelson, that's what you do. And that's why PPC's PlantPure Communities mission is so powerful and so needed, because it's exactly what we need to do. We don't need another study showing that plant-based nutrition lowers high blood pressure. We know that. It's a matter of education, of getting the public tuned into this powerful, powerful reality about the healing foods available to them in every produce department, in every supermarket. And COVID has put such an interesting twist on this now. I saw a video clip of a woman standing in a supermarket, and the meat counter was pretty bare, and it's going to get more so as these slaughterhouses shut down. And she's saying, there's nothing to eat. There's no chicken, there's no pork, there's no beef. And she's standing right next to the produce shelf that is overflowing with potatoes and squash and greens, etc. And I realized that's the mission that we have, is to have that woman turn to her left and see the bounty, the healing bounty that's all around us here. So it's going to give the folks advocating plant-based nutrition a bit of a leg up here. What can we do? First of all, do it yourself. Most important thing before you go proselytizing. Get yourself healthy, understand how plant-based nutrition works. It's pretty simple. Learn how to make a good breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There'll be handouts available, I'm sure, through the website here. And set a good example, and then just start talking to people, invite people over for dinner. It just becomes what you do, and it diffuses throughout the society. And there are handouts. You can bring your family doctor from the Kaiser report on plant-based nutrition, and educate your physician. Heavens knows we need education as doctors. So there's a lot each of us can do. And Nelson, you're so skilled at using the internet and getting these programs out. What's been the most effective way you've seen to help educate the public?
Well, we're getting ready to, as I've mentioned to you before, we're getting ready to launch a strategy through the remainder of this year to really energize our pod network, which now includes over 250,000 people. And by the way, for any of our viewers who are interested in that and joining or starting a pod to plant seeds of change in your own communities, you can learn about that at plantpurecommunities.org. But we've got a strategy that we're going to be rolling out to really energize that network to conduct sort of activist local outreach efforts in their own communities, because I think that's where it's at. I think we have to organize, educate, inspire, and resource local groups to help get this word out. This has to be a grassroots movement, and we'll be talking more about this later in the week. So I won't get into all those details, but I think it has to be a grassroots effort.
Thank you, Nelson, and thank you, Dr. Klaper. So our next question here is for Dr. Klaper. Cynthia and Jamie both asked about how to deal with non-whole food plant-based family members who might be against this way of eating. Why is it so difficult to convert people to a whole food plant-based lifestyle? And can you offer any tips for dealing with your friends and family?
How do you deal with people? You love them. Everybody is where they are. And I grew up eating meat, and I wouldn't want the me today coming into my 20-year-old self and wagging fingers at them. We're all waking up at the rate we're waking up. Again, the best thing you can do is just do it yourself. Set a good example. Let them ask. It'll be very evident why you're deciding to eat what you're eating, or the plant eaters deciding what to eat. There's no blame here. We all got ourselves in this situation for many reasons. Culturally, this is the way we were just brought up. So the best thing to do is love and set a good example. And don't get into arguments, especially now when you're stuck at home with these people. This is not the time to start a civil war over what people are eating. Do the best you can to prepare your own healthy meals and share it with people, and decide, do what you can do to make it taste as delicious as possible. A taste is worth 1,000 words.
Just to a point of administrative point here, we may need to shut down this chat panel.
We're working on it, Nelson.
Yeah, I'm working on it right now.
Yeah, just to let folks know, someone has gotten in here, and it's really really terrible. I don't know why anyone. Yeah, I don't know why anyone would do such a thing. At any rate, I did see before all of that profanity came along, Heather Mills from England said hi. Hi, Heather.
Oh, hey. Hi, Heather.
Yeah, glad that you could join us. All right, so we'll go to the next question. Sorry for that interruption.
Thank you. Yes, a question for Dr. Klaper. We've had many people ask, how do we best educate our physicians about whole food plant-based diets so they can take whole food plant-based nutrition seriously?
Indeed, this is a key issue, which is why I'm trying to reach them while they're still in med school. But if you've got a family doctor, again, love them. They don't know. It just was not on the radar screen when they went through school. But hopefully, they're starting to. The buzz is showing up in the medical journals and other places. One of the best things to do, if you do a Google search on Kaiser Foundation plant-based nutrition for physicians, you'll get a lovely 2.5, 3-page article full of scientific references to print out and give to your doctor. And so I've learned that plant-based nutrition seems to be healing. It seems to be helping whatever your migraines or your diabetes. Here's the science behind it. Next time I'm in, maybe we could talk a bit about it, and just respectfully give them the information. Dr. Joel Kahn, a cardiologist colleague of mine, also has a lovely article in Veg News about how to talk to your doctor about plant-based nutrition. So those articles and the Kaiser notice for physicians, and educate your doctor. They need it.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Klaper. Now, Nelson, a question for you. Catherine asks, what is the key information, or what key information should those in the Global Jumpstart pass on to those who are not watching today?
I would, talk about all the information you're getting. We've loaded tons and tons of helpful information into this program, from a seminar to recipes and cooking videos and other videos and all kinds of stuff. So, our intent during these 10 days is to make it really easy for you to go plant-based and fully experience the health benefits. So that's what I would say to someone who hasn't been a part of this, is that this is a great structured way to learn about a plant-based diet, live plant-based for 10 days, and experience the health benefits. And as I oftentimes say, when you combine education with experience, that's really powerful.
Nelson, I couldn't agree more. I just have to say to everyone, I can sit here and recite all these scientific mechanisms and all this stuff, but what really matters is what you do in your life and in the food you are really putting through your body, meal after meal. And here, PlantPure Communities has laid out this 10-day program that will take you by the hand. Here's what to eat, breakfast, lunch, dinner. Do this for 10 days and see if you don't feel better. It's a beautiful, no risk, no anxiety service that they're providing. I urge the participants here to take advantage of it, especially if you're just putting your toe in the water. This is a great way to get the benefits of this with no risk. So you're in good company, and I hope people take advantage of this great program.
Thank you, Nelson and Dr. Klaper. To those watching, you will also be able to share this recording from this webinar with those who were not able to watch today. Nelson, another question for you. Can you briefly tell us what do pods do and what are your plans for developing the pod network further?
All right, so the pod concept emerged from a film that we made, PlantPure Nation, and many of you have seen that, but if you haven't, you can check that out on Amazon Prime and YouTube and some other platforms. But at the end of the film, we had a call to action for people to form local support and advocacy groups. And people have answered that call to action. And to date, those groups have focused on providing community support. So oftentimes pods meet around a potluck, maybe once a month or every couple of weeks, usually it's about once a month, and just provide support to one another, swap recipes and enjoy each other's company. There's some pods too do educational programming, so there might be some educational element. So that's kind of what they've done to date, and people have loved that, and the pod network's really grown. But what we're getting ready to do through the remainder of this year is to, through a new web platform that we've programmed, to provide access to projects, strategies, resources that will enable pods and other local groups to begin doing some more outreach in their local communities. Because we've heard from our pod members that we love the social and educational aspects of this, but we want to be more involved in our local communities. And so that's really what we're trying to provide through some of the programming that we're going to be delivering later this year. And if you want to, like I said, if you want to join a pod or start a pod, go to plantpurecommunities.org.
I'm looking at some of these questions that are going by. A couple of vegans have high cholesterols here, and I dealt with this on a video on my website. If you go to drklaper.com and click on videos, there's one called Beyond Cholesterol. And it just reassures folks who are taking good care of their arteries that the atherosclerotic plaques it's an inflammatory process because the people are injuring their arteries day after day with the cooked animal protein and the oils and the sugars, etc. If you're not doing that, if you're not injuring your arteries, if they're not inflamed, it's okay if your liver puts out a little extra cholesterol to store some fatty acids, which is where these high cholesterol is coming from. But it doesn't mean that you're at higher risk for artery disease. You can get your inflammatory markers checked to know that you're not all inflamed. And if that's the case, you really don't need to worry about it. Again, see my video Beyond Cholesterol, and it explains all this. So the numbers aren't, you got to escape the tyranny of the numbers here, and they don't pose a threat.
Dr. Klaper, multiple people have asked questions related to getting enough vitamins, nutrients, and minerals. One person wanted to know specifically, how do you know if you're getting enough when you switch to a plant-based diet? And another number of people had asked, which supplements do you recommend people take? Right.
Again, we talk about whole food plant-based diet, underlying whole food. We're talking about the thousands, maybe probably millions of phytonutrients that are in an orange and in romaine lettuce and in carrots, etc. Green and yellow vegetables. You make green and yellow. Make your point to have something green and something yellow every day. Have some citrus on a regular basis, and Keep up with your starches and proteins with lots of grains and legumes, and you will easily meet your nutritional needs here. The vitamins and minerals are in the colorful fruits and vegetables. The only one that isn't is vitamin B12, because that's made by microbes that live in the soil and the water, and we're not drinking out of streams anymore. We're not eating unwashed vegetables. So if you are completely plant-based, you should take some vitamin B12 a couple times a week. That's the only one you officially need. We can talk about vitamin D because we're all living inside these days, even more so. So it's a good idea to take perhaps 1,000 or 2,000 units of vitamin D as well. But those really should cover the bases for folks eating plant-based diets. Vitamin deficiencies, I haven't written that on diagnosis of any of my plant-based eater friends for ever. So not to worry, eat the salads. That's where the vitamins are.
And what about zinc specifically? We've gotten a few questions about whether.
Yes, because zinc is intimately involved in many things, the growth of your hair and nails, integrity of membranes, including the ones in your sinuses and your respiratory tract, as well as the lymphocytes' ability to make antibodies. All these involve zinc-dependent enzymes. And so you want to get the zinc-rich foods going on a regular basis. Fortunately, they're in whole grains. I'm a big quinoa fan, and like farro and millet. But legumes really should show up on in your diet pretty much on a daily basis. That's anything that grows in a pod: beans, peas, chickpeas, lentils. They contain zinc, and root vegetables. Sweet potatoes also are a decent source. So grains, legumes, and root vegetables should keep an adequate supply of zinc going through. That whole food form is best. If you want to take a little extra zinc during these times, don't take handfuls of zinc tablets. We're talking about 12 milligrams, 15 at the most, a couple times a week is all you really need. But it's the food. You eat the whole foods and you should get enough zinc.
Thank you, Dr. Klaper. And so our next question here is from Amy, Sharon, Kristen, and several others. They all have questions about helping moving medicine forward. How can people get the word out about MMF? And more specifically, how can they do this if they are not medical students?
Oh, thank you. Go to my website, drklaper.com. The link will be on this page, I'm sure. Click on Moving Medicine Forward. A couple things. One, understand what we're doing. Understand this movement is afoot. We get welcomed to medical schools across the country, not by the administration. We go right to the students. And the students rent the hall. They put out the notices. They arrange for the either lunchtime rounds or an evening presentation. So go to our website, see what we're doing. Second, there's a little blue panel down on the bottom right saying, if you know a medical student or someone who's on the staff of a medical school who'd be interested in a lecture about plant-based nutrition, click here, give us their information, and we will contact them and arrange a connection. Now, before I was physically going to the medical schools, and when I would leave the med school, we're starting nutrition interest groups to keep the energy going. And we're developing a platform, hopefully by summer. We'll have a platform where medical students and professionals around the country can sign on. And once a month, we'll send everybody a nutrition-based case. When they sign on, we'll have a case discussion. We'll have references for people to follow, and a forum about what's working at each person's medical school, what isn't working, and how we can help each other get plant-based nutrition as part of the standard medical school curriculum. I shouldn't have to be doing this. This should be taught in all 4 years of medical school. So that's ultimately our main goal. So learn what we're doing in the program. Give us if you have any connections with anybody in medical schools. And it takes money to get this program up and moving, certainly plane tickets when we start flying again. But we've got a lot of computer work to do to establish our curriculum here. So tax-deductible donations, courtesy of PlantPure Communities, helping us with our 501c3 issues, will also go a long way as well. And just know that this is happening, that the students are demanding this, that they know something's up. In every medical school class now, there's always 20, 30, 40 students who've seen movies like Forks Over Knives. They've seen What the Health. They've seen Cowspiracy. The light is on in these young students' heads, and we want to fan those flames. So go to our website, learn what we're doing, and help us however you can.
Thank you, Dr. Klaper. So this might have to be our last question. Michelle and Kathy have both asked us about compliance to this way of eating. So do you have to be 100% whole food, plant-based, no oil to see the benefits? Or can you see benefits at different levels of compliance to eating this way?
Sure. As the toxicologists say, the dose makes the poison, and a little bit of animal products or whatever once a week, probably won't cause tremendous health issues unless it carries some microbe along with it. The vast majority of what goes down your gullet should have grown out of the ground. And again, your body's never not looking. Who are we kidding about this? So the more whole plant foods you get in, the healthier you're going to be. And I must admit, since so many of these viruses, including COVID-19, has jumped out of animal confinement operations of growing and eating animals, and the next one is being brewed up in the pig farms and the chicken sheds and the cattle sheds, and they're very much part of this whole equation. And to say, well, it's okay to eat a little bit of beef, a little bit of chicken, you're saying it's okay to keep those animals in those sheds and keep those viruses popping out. And we're paying for that. And the bigger pictures involved when it comes to our whole food choices here. So I would urge people to get themselves healthy by eating a predominantly 95% plus plant-based diet, but also realize the context that this is all taking place has to do with those animals, those factory farms, and you just don't want to support that. Let's get this society healthy as well as our bodies healthy. So less animal products is the best. Less is more and none is best.
Great. Thank you so much for answering all these questions, Dr. Klaper. I think we're ready to move into closing remarks if you would like to begin.
Well, how remarkable on every level. These are remarkable times we're living in, aren't they? On so many levels. The fact that thousands of people get together and on this electronic platform and have this discussion is wonderful, and we should welcome this technology and take advantage of it. Now that it's been enforced upon us, we should embrace it and rejoice and celebrate the good things that are happening. And so many people are doing wonderful things on individual basis and on organizational basis, and PlantPure Community is one of them. So this is not a time for despair. This is time to say, how can I make things better in my own life and for the people around me? And one is to support organizations like PlantPure Community and help their efforts. Educate yourself about the issues here. And if you do that, and if we love enough and care enough about our neighbors and care about the planet and the animals, it all comes down to adopting plant-based diets. Everything will get better from there. And I'm grateful for Nelson and his team for helping us get the word out to this very interested audience. So I wish everybody the best of health and happiness. Thank you very much for the chance to participate.
Nelson, you want to say some closing remarks?
Yeah, I would just say a couple things. First, it's already been mentioned here, but PlantPure Communities, we have a small but hardworking, tireless team, and we rely on public support, donations. So, and likewise, as Dr. Klaper has mentioned, his program relies on donations. And in fact, there's a $10,000 matching grant opportunity now for new donations to the Moving Medicine Forward initiative. Individual donations up to $1,000 will be matched through May 31st. So again, you can support PlantPure Communities and Moving Medicine Forward at plantpurecommunities.org. And to repeat, Dr. Klaper's website is drklaper.com, and spell out drklaper.com. And the very last thing I'll say, I just want to say a word about you, Michael, and thank you so much for coming here. But you know, I knew about you for years before we actually met, because I knew of all the wonderful work that you were doing. And it's been such a pleasure to get to know you. You know, for people who haven't had the good fortune of meeting you, I can say that you are a very humble person. And, you know, a lot of times when people are successful as you've been, for whatever reason, they're not so approachable, but you are very approachable and very humble. And the other thing too is I really admire you for your passion and your work ethic. You mentioned at the outset, I think you're in your early 70s now, right?
Yes,
right.
72.
And for people who don't know, he gets on a plane, he flies all over the place. I don't think I could keep up with you. I do quite a bit of traveling, but you shared with me your travel schedule. I don't know how you do it, but you're a humble and passionate man, and thank you for all that you're doing. You're just a wonderful human being. And thank you for coming here today.
Thank you for the acknowledgement. It's an honor to work with you. Keep up your great work.
Okay.
Great. I just wanted to also do a quick wrap up about what a great conversation this was today. I do want to underscore one thing. We got a bunch of questions from people about the pandemic and plant-based foods and how powerful it is. But I just want to be crystal clear that nobody's saying here that eating whole plant foods is going to mean that you're not going to get infected. What we're saying here is that folks who eat this way, the whole plant foods will actually position themselves to be in a better place to defend against the infection if they get it. So I just want to be crystal clear on that.
Well said, thank you.
Yeah. And a couple of closeout remarks. Just want to again remind folks, and again, thank you to Nelson Campbell and the folks at PlantPure Nation. We're able to put on this event and do the Global Jumpstart because of the incredibly generous, fabulous materials that we've gotten through this pioneering collaboration with PlantPure Nation. It's really a nonprofit, for-profit, really extraordinary thing that really adds to our firepower. So I want to make sure to thank the folks at PlantPure Nation. I also, for folks who don't know about the Global Jumpstart or are involved even in the Global Jumpstart now, we do have another Global Jumpstart. This one is going to be focusing on restarting the economy, and it's going to have a challenge built into it, so folks can go to their elected officials and their family members and challenge them to eat plants for 10 days. You can sign up on our website now for the one that starts on May 10th. That's plantpurecommunities.org. So I encourage everybody to do that. It's free, tons of great information. And as soon as you sign up, it'll open the door to a bunch of really great things like participating in our Facebook group for the Global Jumpstart. We just announced today a discount for the fantastic course at the Colin Campbell Center for Nutrition Studies. We're offering just for a few days a discount. So if you sign up and you use the discount for, over the next few days, you can take the course anytime really until the next year. But if you sign up today, you can actually take that. You can get that take advantage of that discount. Also want to make sure just to restate again that everybody should look at Dr. Campbell's commentary. It's so important. I know for me, I live in New York and was watching all the hospitals get overflowing, within a couple of miles of me. And after I read Dr. Campbell's commentary, it just made me sleep better because I do know that, we don't all have to be just wait till it comes, but we can actually take these steps, and the science is really quite compelling. And then I think that's pretty much it. I just want to, again, I don't smile enough on these, so I'm going to smile. And I'm going to thank you all for being here. Again, thank you to Dr. Klaper. You're one of my favorite people in the world. Love working with you. And of course, all the folks at PlantPure Communities who have been working so hard to over this last couple of weeks, especially to make all this happen. And so with that, I'll say goodbye, and to everybody stay safe. Have a nice day.